Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a question that seems simple on the surface, but it gets right to the heart of what it means to be a citizen and just how much power a country has over you.
So let's just get right to it. Can your own country, the place you were born, the place you call home, actually tell you to get out and never come back? I mean, that feels like the kind of absolute power a king would have, right?
The straightforward legal answer you'll find in most modern law is a pretty solid no. A country can't just kick out its own citizens. But, and this is a huge but, there's a kind of legal backdoor, a really complex and controversial way it could theoretically happen. And that's what we're going to break down.
But before we get to that loophole, we've got to get our terms right, because you hear words like expulsion, deportation, and extradition thrown around all the time as if they're the same thing. Legally speaking, they are worlds apart.
So check this out. Extradition? That's just countries working together to make sure someone faces trial. Deportation? That's usually an administrative thing for violating immigration rules. But expulsion? Whoa, that's a whole different beast. That's a political act. It's the state, in its sovereign power, deciding your very presence is, quote, inconvenient for national security.
So, what's stopping a government from just using this power whenever they want? Well, there's a really cool way to think about it, inspired by the legal theorist Hans Kelsen. Picture all the laws stacked on top of each other, like a pyramid. And what this pyramid shows us is just how many checks and balances there are. Any action taken against you, the individual at the very bottom, has to be legal under every single layer above it. It has to follow the specific order, the national laws, the country's constitution, and all the way at the top, international human rights law. It's basically a fortress of rules designed to protect you. Okay, so to see this pyramid in action, our source material dives into the Mexican Constitution, which is a fantastic case study. It really highlights how the rules change completely depending on one simple question. Are you a foreigner or are you a citizen? For foreigners, it's pretty clear. The Constitution says, yes, they can be expelled if the government doesn't like them being there, though now they at least get a proper hearing. But for Mexican citizens, it's a whole other story. The Constitution builds this massive wall, saying a Mexican citizen by birth cannot be stripped of their nationality. And if you can't stop them from being a citizen, well, you can't expel them. And this isn't just some dusty legal theory. This number you're looking at, 293/2011, that's a landmark case from Mexico's Supreme Court. They made it crystal clear. You cannot directly expel a Mexican citizen unless, and here's that loophole again, they lose their nationality first. So, if direct expulsion is off limits, what is this crazy indirect path we've been talking about? How could a country ever legally get rid of one of its own people? Well, it's like a legal obstacle course. First, a citizen has to commit a super serious crime. We're talking treason or terrorism. Then, the government has to start a whole separate legal battle to actually revoke their citizenship. If and only if they succeed, the person is now legally a foreigner. And only then can the government start the original process of trying to expel them. It's designed to be almost impossibly hard. All these steps, all this complexity, it isn't just there to create red tape. It's actually the physical result of a huge philosophical battle that's going on at the very core of every modern country, the constant tug of war between our rights as individuals and our safety as a community. And it really boils down to a clash between two big ideas. On one side, you've got this liberal-garantista view, which is all about guaranteeing the rights of the individual. It says the government's power has to have a hard limit. On the other side is the collectivist-funcionalista view, which argues that the state's number one job is to protect the community, the us, even if it means stepping on some of those individual rights. So this first view, the garantista one, is championed by thinkers like Luigi Ferrajoli. His whole point is that some rights are just, well, they're universal. You have them simply because you're a human being. They're not a gift from the government, and your passport or your actions can't take them away. They are your shield. But then you have the complete opposite view, often linked to a theorist named Carl Schmitt. He argued that a state's real power, its very essence, is defined by what it can do in a moment of crisis, the exception. For this side, being able to kick out a threat isn't just a tool, it's fundamental to the state's survival. And here's why all this philosophy actually matters in the real world. The power to expel a citizen is the ultimate stress test for a democracy. It forces a country to put its money where its mouth is and decide which of these ideas it truly believes in when the chips are down. It's really a test of whether that legal pyramid we saw holds up under pressure. Does a country stick to its own constitution and human rights treaties, or does it crack under fear and political pressure? How a nation answers that question tells you everything you need to know about its character. And that brings us right back to the beginning. The big takeaway here is that while, yes, a legal loophole to expel a citizen does exist, man, it is a tiny one. The path is indirect, it's incredibly steep, and it's surrounded by legal and constitutional guardrails. It's meant to be exceptional.
So we're left with this really tough final thought. In our world, with all its complex threats, the pressure on governments to act decisively is only growing. So the real question is, where do you draw the line? How does a modern democracy balance its fundamental duty to protect the entire community against its solemn promise to protect the rights of every single individual? That's a question that every single democracy is wrestling with right now.